A law professor called Kimberly Crenshaw came up with the idea of intersectionality. And this is a very important concept that you should become intimately familiar with, because it is defining the current political scene, and this political scene is ultimately going to lead us to a civil war. Okay? So you want to understand what intersectionality is and just research it, because you got to know what your enemy believes in. Okay? Okay, let's get started. Intersectionality is simplicity itself. It's the idea that each person has different identities, and these different identities intersect. They intersect and create sort of like different identities and different positions insofar as the grievance ladder is concerned. Now, let me explain. Kimberly Crenshaw came up with this idea because she is a black woman. Now, of course, insofar as this leftist ideology, this grievance culture is concerned, a woman is oppressed by the patriarchy, but, a black person is oppressed by the systemic racism of our society, right? Irrespective of whether you believe in this bullshit or not. Okay, let's just posit it. But see, a woman who is also black, well, there are two levels that are intersecting: her blackness and her femalehood. Okay, and because of that, the fact that she is both black and a woman, that intersection leads to a different sort of oppression. You see what I mean? You see how crazy it is? Because it can quickly develop into a weird aristocracy of grievance. How does this aristocracy of grievance work? Very simple. The one with the most grievance points wins. Yeah. Suppose I'm a woman. Or better yet, suppose I'm a trans woman. Suppose I'm a trans woman of color. Suppose I'm a trans woman of color who's in a wheelchair. Yeah, so I've got like a whole bunch of grievance points, because there are a whole bunch of different intersections going on there, right? See, there are people who are discriminated because they are trans, people who are discriminated because they are women, people who are discriminated because they are people of color, people who are discriminated against because they are in a wheelchair. And on top of that, let's say that this trans woman of color who is disabled is also a lesbian. She gets it all. She got 6, levels of intersection. She wins the grievance lottery. Yay! And why is this a lottery? Why is she, winning something? Why is she so happy? Well, because see, this grievance culture, this equity culture, as they call it, right? The equity culture, what's the whole notion of it? The idea is to give assistance, systemic assistance, to different people depending on their level of grievance. See, if you're a person of color, you get a little bit of assistance. If you're a woman, you get a little bit more of assistance. If you're a lesbian, even more and more. See, each person who has a grievance in our society gets a little bit of extra. And if you have a lot of intersections, well, all those little bits of extra add up and elevate a person, and thereby creating an aristocracy, because that's what's going on. It's the antithesis of the liberal republic. Because you see, in the liberal republic, the idea is that everybody is equal. Everybody is equal before the law. Everybody has equal opportunities, irrespective of your sex, your race, or any other issue that you might happen to have. That's the essence of liberalism. But see, intersectionality flips that around, because it says that liberalism is inherently homophobic, sexist, racist, ableist, whatever else. And so to combat this inherent systemic bigotry against these different classes, you have to give each person a little bit extra, a little step up. But you add up all of these little steps, and you are elevating certain people, and of course, by definition, pushing other people down. By definition. And who are you pushing down, you might ask? Well, quite obviously, the people who are not people of color, the people who are not women, the people who are not trans, the people who are not disabled. And who would those people be in the Western democracies? Well, they would be male, they would be white, they would be physically without any problem, and they'd be not trans. They'd be cis hetero. Now, if you're that guy, a white guy, you're fucked, because you're at the bottom of the barrel, the bottom of this aristocracy. You are at the bottom, and everybody else has permission to shit on you. That's the flip side of intersectionality. Oh yeah, it raises some people, but by definition it has to pull other people down. And not just pull them down, it has to squash them down. Squash them down and potentially expunge them from society. Drive them out. That's the inevitable effect of intersectionality. And you are the individual who's going to be expunged from this brave new world. Now, if this situation reminds you a little bit of what happened in Marxist revolutions, well, it's kind of unsurprising now, isn't it? Yeah, because in Marxist revolutions, like look at the Soviet Union. I mean, I studied that relatively closely, okay? And what did they do? They expunged the aristocracy. The Romanov family, they were all killed. All the Russian nobility were sent to gulags, and then they went down. They went down the ladder to the bourgeois, to the kulaks. They sent them all to the camps. They killed them or worked them to death so that everybody would be the same. That was the idea. That was the idea, and inevitably what it meant was that, you know, the dictatorship of the proletariat meant that somebody had to be destroyed. In intersectionality, who is that person who's going to be destroyed? The white guy. The white guy, the white male. He is going to be destroyed. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing it right the fuck now. And there were some congressional hearings just the other day, and we saw where this is going. And it's simplicity itself. See, people who buy this equity nonsense, people who buy intersectionality, people who truly believe it and espouse it, well, they have identified white nationalists as the bugaboo. They have identified white nationalists as the enemy. They have identified white nationalists, and they use the term white nationalists for everybody who is opposed to them. That's the trick that they're pulling. Okay? And we saw that in these congressional hearings. We saw that in these hearings where they were saying how Facebook and Google and all the other social media companies had to crack down on white nationalists. Who are the white nationalists? They're everybody who do not want to be destroyed by these people. And that means you and me. We're the enemy. We are the white nationalists. Because we're not actually white nationalists? Of course not. You know, we're not parading around and giving each other Nazi salutes or shit like that. That's bullshit. But what it is, see, we're the enemy of intersectionality. We are the bottom, the flip side of the aristocracy. We're at the bottom and we have to be expunged. And how do you expunge a people? What's the first step that you take? You identify them as a group, and then you vilify that group. And that's what's going on. We're being called white nationalists. Yeah, if you're a guy who's able-bodied, heterosexual, not trans, and white, you're basically the enemy. You're a white nationalist by definition. Even though if you could be leftist in your politics, right? You could be like pro-abortion, pro-high taxes, pro-everything that traditionally the left has espoused. But if you're a guy who is white, who is hetero, who is able-bodied, who is not trans, you're fucked. You're going to get squashed. You're going to be called a white nationalist, whether you are one or not. And you are going to be demonized and persecuted, because ultimately this is where this is going. Persecution of you and me. Now, in this video, I'm not telling you what to do, okay? I'm not advocating any position in this video. I am simply telling you what the situation is. And this situation does not have a happy ending. Of course not. Because if you have an intransigent political group who wants to destroy somebody on the basis of their sex and race and sexual proclivity and sexual whatever you call it, right? If you have a group like that, which is what the intersectionalists are, right? They are out to destroy white hetero men, right? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to just take it? Are we supposed to just like sit there amiably and allow for our own destruction? Or let me put it to you in a different way. Would it be okay for me to go to your house and put a bullet through your head? You know? Just because you happen to be white, male, hetero? Do you think that would be fair? Because that's what intersectionality ultimately aims for. They're aiming to put a bullet through your head.